What's going on, YouTube? How are you doing today? Today I wanted to add another episode to the series of Intro to Competitive Pokemon, and I wanted to talk about types of hyper offense today. So this is not a be-all end-all or anything. Like, there are other kinds of hyper offense, but I wanted to go more in depth because I kind of touched on it in the team archetype video, but it's such a wide variety of teams, and even if you don't necessarily want to play a hyper offense team, you have to know what a different, like, if you're playing against somebody who is playing hyper offense, you have to be able to see that on the team matchup screen. You have to be able to see their Pokemon, see what they're trying to use, and then that will affect how you play throughout the game, because you need to play a certain way so that you don't lose to some of their late game sweepers, and just know what they are trying to do with their team. So I'm just going to start out with a Sticky Webs team. So basically the premise of a Sticky Webs team is to get up the hazard called Sticky Webs. These are all Sticky Webbers you might see in the OU tier. You also might see something like Shuckle. Sometimes people will run Masquerain or something. Anything that learns Sticky Web. Basically what happens is they throw it on your side of the field, and as soon as you come in you get a speed drop, right? So you're -1 speed, and then they can kind of just outspeed you and outpower you. So if you were hoping to send out something like a Tapu Koko and overpower and overspeed something on their team, but then you land on the Sticky Web and they have something that would normally be slower than a Tapu Koko, but now after the Sticky Web lowers the Tapu Koko speed, you can outspeed and kill the Tapu Koko in one hit. That's the idea of the team. You want really powerful things that would normally have a little bit of issue because they're a little bit too slow or something, and then this just gives them that extra edge that they need to beat the opponent's team. Now, Sticky Webs only will slow you down if you are touching the ground. So if you are a flying type or you have Levitate, Sticky Webs will not affect you. So when you're making a Sticky Webs team, you have to be wary of that. You probably want to have something like a fast electric type of your own, maybe a Tapu Koko, to try to take out anything that might be floating on your opponent's team. Other things you have to think about is what if they defog your Sticky Webs and everything. So you want to have ways to avoid them from defogging, maybe some sort of taunt user, or just play around it so that they never get a good chance to have their defogger in on one of your Pokemon, so that you can always kill their defogger before they can defog. If you can keep the webs up, then you have a pretty good chance of winning, because you're going to be bringing a lot of powerful Pokemon, and if you can outspeed their entire team, then you can just plow through them. I'm going to talk about some more things that will be on this team at the end when I talk about sweepers, but basically the premise of a Sticky Webs team is you have a Sticky Webber, somebody who sets up Sticky Webs and other hazards, so Shuckle can set up Stealth Rock and Sticky Webs, and then you have a bunch of sweepers on your team to just take out the rest of their team. You don't really have too many defensive mons. Maybe you have like one thing that's kind of fat that you can pivot into, but for the most part you just want to be on the offensive and stop them from defogging your Sticky Webs and stop them from doing anything that would be beneficial. You kind of just want to plow through their team. And again, for playing against Sticky Webs, you want to make sure they don't get the Sticky Webs up, and just keep them off your side of the field. And if you have something that's floating, maybe you can play to that strength and make sure you keep that thing that's floating alive so that you don't get slowed down by the Sticky Webs, and then that thing can kind of punch through their team later in the game, because usually a Sticky Webs team is not very bulky, so you can take down their team fairly easily. Next type is the Double Sash lead. So this is a very common type of hyper offense that you'll see actually a lot. If you see both an Excadrill and a Greninja on a team with like 4 other things that look like they're meant to sweep your team, then chances are you're playing a Double Sash hyper offense lead. So this should also be Focus Sash. But the general idea of this is like these are kind of 2 of the sets you'll commonly see, like a Greninja with Spike, Skunk Shot, Low Kick, and Ice Beam, and then an Excadrill with Rapid Spin, Stealth Rock, Earthquake, and then like Toxic or Iron Head or something. There are variations of it, but the idea is that these things both have focus sashes, so that they'll always live at least one hit. They will throw out hazards, so they will throw out, Greninja will throw out spikes, and Excadrill will throw out stealth rock, so every time you're coming in, you're taking in a lot of damage. And then they also can kind of counter some good leads that you might have. So if you have something like a Mega Deontay that you want to stop them from setting up their hazards with, Excadrill can have something like Iron Head or Earthquake that can take it out. Or you run Protean on Greninja over Battle Bond because it gives you like Ice Beam options, it gives you Gunk Shot for if they want to lead Clefable, you have Locate for something like Tyranitar and stuff, or Heatran. And then you can just set up your spikes, set up your Stealth Rock, and Excadrill makes it so that you can rapid spin your opponent's hazards away. So ideal setup for a hyper offense team is get up 1 or 2 layers of spikes, get up Stealth Rock, have no hazards on your side of the field, and then after those 2 things die, then the rest of your team can just power through your opponent's team. So you want no hazards on your side when these 2 things are dead, and you want hazards on your opponent's team side. Obviously, if you are playing against them, you want to stop them from achieving that goal. You want to be weary of these things' movesets, so you don't want anything that will get KO'd by them, because they are also still powerful. Although they are out there to set up hazards and keep hazards off, they are also very powerful Pokemon, so you don't want to get killed by them. So you have to be weary of that, but you also want to do your best to not let them get too many hazards up, and then if you can kill them and then immediately defog their hazards, that's going to be really painful to their team. If you have something like an Excadrill that can come in and rapid spin later, that's going to be really helpful against this. But the idea of this team, set up your hazards, kill any leads on the opponent's team, kill common leads, and then at the end, just have your hazards up and not have the opponent's hazards up. So next team will be an Aurora Veil team, and it's actually very common to the Screens team here. Basically the idea is this is a hyper offense team, but this is a little bulkier. So you have some things that can usually set up and like take a hit. So something like Belly Drum, right? Belly Drum increases your attack to the absolute max, but it takes away half of your health. And that is a big risk, because if somebody can do half of your health to you and you use Belly Drum, you're gonna die, right? So the idea of an Aurora Veil team is that you get up the Aurora Veil so that you don't easily die, then you can freely Belly Drum. This will commonly come with things like Linoon, because Linoon can have a berry, like a 50% berry, and then he also has Gluttony, so when he Belly Drums, he goes down to half his HP, and then since he has Gluttony, he eats his 50% berry when he has half of his health left, rather than 25% of his health left. So he goes right back up to full HP, so he's not super easy to kill if he's behind an Aurora Veil, and has full HP, and now he has max attack, and then he can extreme speed you in something. Like, it's very, very dangerous, so that's something you want to look out for. Basically the idea of the Aurora Veil team is to just get the Aurora Veil up. You probably want to get up Stealth Rocks or Spikes or something as well. But once you get up your Aurora Veil, you're kind of on a timer, because Aurora Veil only lasts for like 7 or 8 turns. So if you can keep your Ninetales for later in the match to set up another Aurora Veil, that's a really great thing to be able to do. And if you're playing against an Aurora Veil team, first thing you have to do is make sure you don't get swept by some of their really strong sweepers. They're usually going to have something with Belly Drum, maybe something with Quiver Dance, maybe something with Dragon Dance, and they just want to set up and then take you down. So be wary of those. Hopefully you can either kill the Ninetales before it gets the Aurora Veil up, or you can defog it right away, or you can just waste out their Aurora Veil, like try to keep their Ninetales in, and make it die slowly so that they never have a good chance to use the Aurora Veil, so that it gets wasted. Basically, the idea is just avoid getting swept by some of the really powerful sweepers, and just try not to let them get the Aurora Veil up so you can kill their Pokemon easily. Pretty much the same thing for dual screens, except with dual screens you will be using Reflect and Light Screen, which means you have to set up 2 things, and Aurora Veil only has to set up 1, but it's not quite as powerful, but it protects you from both sides. So I mean, there are benefits and anti-benefit. there are advantages and disadvantages to both, and ways to beat this team, again, waste out their screens. So like after they set up their screens, kind of like make them stay in so that their actual good Pokemon that like are meant to sweep you don't get the chance to sweep you. Another thing is the move Defog, which removes all hazards from the field, also removes a team's screens. So if they set up Reflect and Light Screen and use Defog, then it will completely clear those away from the battlefield. So a lot of teams will already have Defog because you want to be able to clear the hazards from the field in case somebody hazard stacks on you. Make sure you can get your Defogger in on a good Pokemon, like a thing that it can wall, and then defog against that so that they no longer have their screens. So that's how you're going to beat a screens or an Aurora Veil team. And then you have Trick Room. So Trick Room is one of my favorite kinds of playstyles, honestly. It's a lot of fun. The idea of Trick Room is that for 4 turns, the speed order will be swapped. So if you were originally very fast and you would always outspeed something, all of a sudden you're the slowest thing. And the thing that's super slow and never outspeeds anything is now going to be the fastest thing. So the idea of the Trick Room team is you want to have 2 or 3 Trick Room setters, and then you want to set up the Trick Room and then have some really slow Pokemon on your team that can just plow through the opponent. So some things you'll see on a Trick Room team, first thing you'll notice is a lot of their Pokemon are very slow, and you just have to know that from matchup screen. If you look and you see a Stakataka, and you look and you see a Crabominable, and you see a Vikavolt, and you just see other things that look really slow but really powerful, that's what thrives in Trick Room. So another thing you would see is Crawdon or Alolan Marowak. Those are all things you'll see on Trick Room. The other thing is you'll see a bunch of Pokemon that get Trick Room on their team. So Magearna, Cresselia, Uxie, again, Stakataka also gets it. A couple other things. A lot of times you'll see a Uxie lead because it can set up Stealth Rock and Trick Room. Cresselia you'll see a lot on a lot of teams because it has Lunar Dance, which kills Cresselia, but the next thing that comes in gets all its HP and cures any status. So you'll see Cresselia and Uxie because one can set up hazards and also Trick Room. Cresselia can heal things and also set up Trick Room. And then Magearna you'll see on a lot of teams just because Magearna is very powerful and it also sets up Trick Room. So it can set up Trick Room and then sweep for itself, while Uxie is kind of like set up Trick Room and then get something else in. Magearna can like set up Trick Room and do a lot of damage itself. Another thing is like Stakataka. Like if you see Stakataka on a team, even if it's not a Trick Room team, you can usually assume that the Stakataka is going to have Trick Room because Stakataka is so slow that it outspeeds like everything, and then it just gyro balls and kills. It's super powerful. So Stakataka is usually another sure sign of a Trick Room team. The way to beat Trick Room would be 1, denying them getting their Trick Room up. So you can do that with things like Taunt, you can do that with things like having something that can kill their Trick Room setters in 1 turn. You can do that with things like Roar, Whirlwind, Dragon Tail, Circle Throw, those kinds of moves. Since Trick Room has negative priority and it's like the slowest negative priority, these moves, well, I think second slowest actually technically, but these moves will actually phase them out before they can set up the Trick Room. So if you can roar on something that is setting up Trick Room, your roar will actually go before the Trick Room gets set up, so they'll never get the chance to set it up. So you kind of just want to overpower them. And after they get the Trick Room set up, what you're going to want to do is just switch out to something that can wall whatever they're using, so that you can stall out the Trick Room. If you have moves like Protect on your Pokemon, that's really great because Trick Room is a very short amount of time, and if you can Protect, that just wastes a turn that they would have been able to Trick Room. Or if you can set up a substitute when something is trying to Trick Room, then you can just continue to waste turns with your substitute. So really, really fun play style. It keeps you honest because you have to set up the Trick Room and then make a lot of predictions and like try to overpower their team within a short amount of turns. Trick Room is really good against like some other kinds of hyper offense because other kinds of hyper offense are usually trying to outspeed and kill you, and they're not very bulky. But if you use Trick Room, you can outspeed them, and since they're not bulky, you can kill like everything in one hit. So it's a really fun counter team. It's something that I would suggest you play around with, and it's also definitely something that's been gaining steam in Sun and Moon. You didn't used to see Trick Room teams all that often, but now you're actually seeing a lot of them on the ladder. So it's something that you have to learn to play against and know what it is as soon as you see it on team matchup screen. So you're going to see Trick Roomers. If you see Trick Roomers and slow Mons, then you pretty much know it's a Trick Room team. So finally, what is the rest of the things on all these teams? So if you look at a team and you have like a Sticky Webber, or you see the Double Sash lead, or you have the Aurora Veil, or the Trick Room, or the screens or something, what's going to be taking up the rest of the slots on that team? What you'll see is just a bunch of sweepers, usually. So all these sweepers have different reasons to use them, but they're all things that you would find on a hyper offense team usually. So with something like Sticky Webs, or with something that's like hazard stacking, like the Double Focus Sash lead, you might find a Bisharp. And why would you find a Bisharp? One, Bisharp is very powerful. Two, if you are using a Sticky Webs team, Bisharp can actually outspeed a lot of things and can kill them. But one of the main reasons is he has the ability to Defiant. So anytime one of your stats is lowered, then your attack is raised 2 stages. So if they send out something like a Landorus and intimidate you, your attack goes down 1 stage, but then it goes up 2 stages. The other thing this is helpful for is when they defog. So when somebody defogs, it clears the stage of any hazards and like screens. So defog will get rid of your Sticky Webs that you set up, but it also lowers your evasiveness. So when they lower Bisharp's evasiveness, his attack then goes up 2 stages. So if you can get Bisharp in when somebody's trying to defog, maybe you didn't stop them from defogging, but now they're going to be facing the price of defogging because Bisharp now has +2 attack and he's very powerful, and he can just come in and smack something with a knockoff or a sucker punch. So basically, he is a countermeasure for when your opponent tries to defog, and he's also really great on Sticky Webs teams because he outspeeds a lot of things. Gyarados is something that you might find because he's very bulky and he has the move Dragon Dance, which raises his speed and attack. So if you can get Gyarados in and start Dragon Dancing, things are just going to start dropping like flies. He's a really great late game sweeper and he can win games on his own. So anything that has Dragon Dance, anything that can set up like that, like you might see a Charizard, or you might see Dragonite, or basically anything with Dragon Dance can take this spot, but I just use Gyarados as an example. Mimikyu is cool because he has the Disguise ability, which is basically like an insurance policy. So if your opponent uses something that can start setting up against your team, so say they have a Gyarados of their own and they start Dragon Dancing, for example, you have Mimikyu to come in, and Mimikyu can always take one hit unless they have an ability that goes through your disguise or something. But Mimikyu can always live one hit, and then Mimikyu can hopefully KO them back, or at least do some damage so that something else can KO them back. So he's kind of like an insurance policy for a team that doesn't have very bulky Pokemon. It's kind of just like that one thing that can take a hit on the team. He's also good for like, if you have Disguise and Focus Sash on him, he can take 2 hits. I was thinking about doing there are other kinds of hyper offense as well. I was thinking about putting a Focus Sash spam hyper offense team on there, but that's a different thing for another time. I'll do another hyper offense video because this is getting kind of long. Ash Greninja is really great because he's just like a premier wall breaker. Like, he's just stupid powerful. 153 base special attack. You put on choice specs. You have a priority move that's special in Water Shuriken. So Water Shuriken can just power through teams. And then you have stuff like Hydro Pump. Like, people can't switch in on that. Even things like Chanseys are going to be 2-hit KO'd if you have enough like hazards and stuff up. So Ash Greninja is just something that's super powerful. You'll see it on the team. Tapu Koko is really good because it's super fast. It is electric type, which means a lot of defoggers might be like flying types because it's a flying type move. Tapu Koko can kill a lot of those, and he also sets up electric terrain, which is really great for powering up his electric move. So he can just be another great wall breaker, and hits for a great weakness because it hits things like Toxapex and Celesteela as well, which are a pretty common core for a lot of teams. And finally, the last kind of thing you might see, kind of similar to Dragon Dance, except on the special side. So Volcarona is just crazy scary for teams. If you don't have a Volcarona answer on your team and you see a Volcarona on the opponent's team, it's pretty much just an automatic loss unless the opponent plays really poorly, because you get Quiver Dance up, it raises your special attack, special defense, and speed, so you're becoming bulkier, you're becoming faster, you're becoming stronger, and it's just like a domino. Like, once you start get going, like, it's all coming down. So that's something that you want to look out for. I'm sorry, if you just heard an alarm, I go to a school and they play an alarm at like the first Wednesday of every month. It's whack. But anyway, so lots of different kinds of hyper offense teams, and what you'll see on a hyper offense team is something that like sets up hazards, something that sets up sticky web, something that sets up a trick room, something that sets up an Aurora Veil, something like that, and then a bunch of things on the team that will be able to sweep the opponent and just take them down. So that's the idea. You want to overpower your opponent. So if you found this helpful, go ahead, leave a like, share it with somebody. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave it in the comments. If I missed anything, if I said anything that was wrong and you want to correct me or something, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Super responsive to comments and stuff. Hope you all have a wonderful day though. Peace out, and don't forget to subscribe and check out the rest of the videos in the series.